YouTube. Welcome to another edition of New Year Black Me. So I want to address a question that many Americans ask. Why do Black people not like the American flag? I have the answer to that question. So first you have to ask yourself, what does the Confederate flag come from? It comes from a time when there was the Confederate States of America. And what that is it's a it comprised of 11 states that tried to create a sovereign nation separate from the rest of the United States. The United States at the time, there was a rift between the North and the South. The North and the South had a disagreement between cultural and economic differences. And of course, slavery was in the middle of that, but this did not necessarily have to do with slavery or the Northern's moral compass and their moral obligation to make sure that there were no slaves in America. But this had to do with the fact that the South was getting rich economically based off of free labor, and they didn't think that that was right. They were benefiting. The Southern said that they have their right to do what they want, and the slaves are considered chattel. They're not necessarily people. So in regards to that rift, in the disagreement that they had with the North, there was several states that decided to secede from the United States. First was South Carolina and Mississippi, and that was in the early 1850s. After this, the war broke out, and that was around 1861. After the war broke out, then a lot of slaves had to be free. At this time, this is around 1863. As a rebellion to the fact that they lost, they decided to do many things to hinder Black slaves, or the slaves are now free, so they're free. So one was Mississippi created a concentration camp called the Devil's Punch Bowl and put a lot of Blacks there and left them there to die. There were other things such as Black Code laws that lasted hundreds of years, and then going into the mid 1900s, then you have, or I should say early 1900s, and it ended in the mid 1960s, was Jim Crow laws. Then after that, you have just general discrimination, although it may not be outward because there was a Civil Rights Act that tried to prevent that. But, you know, it still happens. So you have discrimination, and you just have many years of hatred in people's hearts. And then the fact that there are statues and flags that is a memory of that horrific past, not just to Blacks, but just Americans as a whole. So you have to ask yourself, what are you fighting for? Confederate States of America were fighting for their right to do as they please and have slaves. And that was their flag, the Confederate flag. The fact that you have that Confederate flag, ask yourself, are you repping for the South just in general, that you're just repping for the South or repping for your state? Or are you trying to hold on to a past that you feel that's dear to you? And if that is considered a past that is dear to you, then yes, that's why Blacks don't like the flag, because it's a horrible past that no one should want to remember. You know, it can be in museums, it can be in history books, but it shouldn't be out and about. Well, people have to force to remember this horrible past. So that is why we do not like the flag. So comment down below, hit the like button, and subscribe.